So, look, I don't know how to say this. I've been playing quite a few games that aren't Monster Hunter recently. But however, they've all made me think a lot more about Monster Hunter.
Now you have my attention.
Hello then, my fellow hunters. I have talked a lot over the years about Monster Hunter. Thank you. I'd like to dedicate this award for the most redundant, obvious sentence ever uttered by man to myself, actually. I'm really humbled to receive. Okay. But the point I'm going for is some of those discussions have entered the territory of the kinds of Monster Hunter games I'd like to see. Because there are a lot of them, and I feel like more and more, as the game grows in popularity, and let's be honest, it's reached stratospheric with World and Iceborne, and it seems to be on the track to go stratospherically stratospheric with Wilds. And because of that, things are being tested. We got Monster Hunter Now, a Pokemon Go-esque experience. We had Feline Puzzles, which is, silly of in itself. Even with Outlanders, this, honestly, really out of nowhere wild take on what feels like Genshin Hunters. But there is one type of Monster Hunter game that still hasn't happened as a spin-off that I ideally want to happen, and it's something I've brought up a few times. Remember when I talked about Mesopod Reclamation? Yeah, that old chestnut! Well, I talked about it because part of that game was ultimately rebuilding a village in the Monster Hunter universe. Some of my greatest loves, genre-wise, are kind of managers, right? Top-down games where you're in charge of constructing a thing, alongside games that are like RTSs, like your Age of Empires, your StarCraft, and I feel like a top-down-esque Monster Hunter that's properly done, AAA standard, not some side project on a mobile, could be really interesting. But it goes beyond that, and honestly this is also why I did talk about Feline Puzzles, because part of that game, is rebuilding and repairing the feline village, and that's an oasis in a desert, even if it's kind of a small one, and the water's not sure why it's a little bit brown. But in any case, the other angle here is that Monster Hunter is all about nature, about that love for ecology, for the natural world, and they have projected that in Wilds more than I think any other game. World and Iceborne was the standard, but now Wilds has taken it so much further. And I can't imagine a greater expression of the nature of Monster Hunter than a game that actually lets you take control of it. And to me, that can come within two angles. The first I'll go over more quickly, because it's a little bit sillier, at least with the example I have. That is, being the monster. Almost Evolve-esque from back in the day, but more recently, me and Cotton, in a very fun, silly pro and noob, played this take on Monster Hunter where you just control them and fight each other. And it was silly, it was a bit janky, but it was certainly amusing. But if you ignore the kind of initial surface level of it and imagine the idea of a game where you are the monster taken to its ultimate extreme with actual nuance and detail, that could be really fun. I guess you could think of it like a spore cycle, but for Monster Hunter, being a creature in an environment and actually going through the harsh reality that is surviving in the Monster Hunter world. Maybe being part of a pack, having to look for and establish dens and territory, fight off your rivals, hell, even survive the ultimate death-dealing gods that are, from your perspective now, the hunters that quite literally are coming for your hide. That, I think, is greatly amusing and something that I would love to see explored, and that would quite really need the absolute most realized natural world that Monster Hunter is capable of. And as that's the main reason I initially really fell in love with the series, it sparked my now lifelong adoration for our own planet, its animals, its creatures, how it all connects together. I can't get enough of it. I really would love one day to see that fully expressed in a Monster Hunter game. And honestly, Wilds really is doing a pretty damn good job of that. It's one thing to just walk around the Wudwud Plains in the beta, which I did a lot of, easily as much as actual hunting, and just observing the endemic life, the monsters, watching them go about their business, and it's so alive more than it's ever been. But that aspect not being a sideshow to the world that you're hunting in, but taking center stage, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I would find that an absolute treat. And then, more recently, a game came along that honestly gave me a little glimpse as to how it could be done. A game called Towers of Aghasba. This is all about ecosystems, culturing them, preserving them, nurturing them, growing them, terraforming the landscape to actually attract a thriving group of flora and fauna. At a basic level, it's an RPG with survival elements, and you and your tribe go to this land. It's just arid and desolate, but you plant what is known as a colossal seed. It makes this special tree, and then the world comes alive. Flowers and grass and greenery sprout. That in turn attracts new animals to it, and you can then work with them, and yes, use them for resources, for meat, but you do it with a certain element of balance. And I was doing this, seeing it, playing it, and thinking, wow, okay, firstly, this is really cool, and honestly, check it out, guys. Towers of Aghasba has a lot of potential, and I really do recommend keeping an eye on it, but almost like modeled to Monster Hunter? Wow. And it really draws to light how equally awe-inspiring and terrifying just kind of being a normal villager person trying to get by in the Monster Hunter world would be. So this concept of take you, a small group of people, forage out into, say, an ancient forest-like environment, put down roots literally in, growing plants, but then also with buildings and creating a little settlement and maybe eventually attracting hunters and getting recognized by the guild and posting quests and stuff. But this actual, big world survival-y type vibe is something I find really appealing and would love to see in a Monster Hunter context. Ironically, Outlanders is kind of doing that in the fact that we're not playing hunters in Outlanders. We are playing Outlanders, which aren't strictly guild affiliated, or at least I wouldn't guess so, and are essentially doing things their own way. Actually, Rise and Sunbreak in Chimera Village is a little bit similar. They were officially guild registered and such, but the way of life that they had is so distinctly different from any other sect of Monster Hunter, with their culture and their wirebugs and how they hunt and wyvern riding and so on and so forth, that would be totally that kind of thing. You could totally see Chimera Village as a settled, established village in a game like that. And it just really kind of brought to light to me how much this really would be such an interesting, at least to me, take and concept on the Monster Hunter universe. Really push that kind of naturally part of it, whether it's surviving as a more normal group with a sort of literal survival villagey building, working with nature angle, or being the monster itself angle and having to deal with the trials and tribulations of simply existing, surviving for yet another day in a world that brutal. Playing as something like an Aptonoth, not that I think Aptonoth would be the best star of the show as much as I love Aptonoth, but then having to hurry away when a Devil Joe comes stomping in would be quite the exhilarating moment. It also harkens back to another thing that I've often talked about, is that Monster Hunter would actually be a great setting setting for something a little bit more adrenaline-filled, something a little bit more horror-filled. Just being a normal person trying to get from one city to another, and you're, pushing your way through a forest when suddenly you hear that rattle and roar of the Naga cougar, and it's like, holy shit, how do I survive? Diving behind like the thick roots of a tree as it smashes into it, and it's looking for you, and it's really, really intense. I think we forget sometimes, as, we are hunters, that the monsters themselves are overwhelmingly powerful and therefore scary. There's not a lot you can regularly do if you're not a hunter, which, drives the guild and hunters to the way that they are in the world of Monster Hunter. But I just thought it was interesting, actually getting such a good core example from Towers of Aghasba over what a full nature-focused Monster Hunter game could actually be like, and how much it's still to this day something I really, really want to see it come to life. I would love to know your thoughts on all this, any of these concepts that you'd be eager for, which one would you most want, and any that I've not thought about. For now though, let me know what you think, like you've enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more, consider supporting the future channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.